joining us. I believe we are now live on pretty much everywhere. Hi, I'm Chris Mattia. My call sign is Whiskey 6 Alpha Hotel. This is WaveTalkers Live, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues today. I've got Dan NR6V, David KK60A, and David W0DHG. And as normal, we pick some topic related to radio, emergency communications, ham radio, or something like that. And today we're going to be doing a wrap up of the field day experiences from 2022. So with that, we would ask if everyone could send us a WinLink check-in if you have access to WinLink. If you don't have access to WinLink, or if you haven't gotten WinLink set up, we've got a whole series up on YouTube and on our WaveTalkers website. If you go to wavetalkers.com, you can find those up there, and it'll walk you through step by step. I just got a couple of emails this past week from people who are sending me WinLink check-ins saying, hey, this is my first time being able to check in and try this out. I'm learning a lot from you guys. So we really appreciate everybody who does that. So if you're going to send in a check-in, just use the standard WinLink check-in form. We'll walk through that process in just a second. Send it to all four of us, KK60A, W0DHG, NR6V, W6AH, and to our tactical call, WaveTalkers. Just separate all of those with a semicolon, and I'm sure one of the guys will put the listing of all of those in the chat for us here real quick. And in the comments section, let us know, what is the most memorable thing about field day for you? What did you do for field day? Tell us just a little brief synopsis about what you did. So with that, let me change over to this screen here. Yeah, there we go. That is my WinLink session. So if you're not familiar with the process, all you do is you come up here in WinLink, you click on the little new message button, click that guy right there. And then up in the top, there's a button that says select template. You go ahead and give that a click, and you want to click on standard templates, and you come down a little bit from there. You'll find a section. Oh, what the heck? Let's go into the one that says mapping GIS forms. You go ahead and open that up, and down near the bottom, you'll see WinLink check-in.txt. Just go ahead and give that a double click. And if the demo gods are with you, it should open up in your web browser of choice. Go ahead and click through this process. Actually, I didn't pin myself, and nobody reminded me. So let me quickly unpin myself, remove the spotlight, and then re-spotlight myself.
You do that with one button, don't you?
I kind of. It's just a place spotlight. There we go. Now we're back in business. All right. So let's see. So you open up the WinLink check-in form. You go ahead and fill this out. This is where you enter in all of our call signs, your call sign, your name. Make sure you give us the lat long, because at the end of this episode, we will go ahead and map all of these and see where everybody is checking in from. And I'm really hopeful that we've got a couple of new pins on the map from some new people that checked in just a little while ago today. So here's where you tell us what was interesting about what you found interesting about field day. Hit the submit button. It should go ahead and fill in all of this information here inside of the message. And go ahead and post that to the outbox and send it in to us. It's a pretty straightforward process. I'll go ahead and do a quick check and see if any of those are coming in at this point. It looks like
they are indeed.
They are indeed. Look at that. We've got them coming in from all over the place. That's awesome. We love to see that. So very cool. We'll check back in on that in just a few minutes. In the meantime, let's get started for today. So I wanted to do a very quick MCOM update. One of the things that I've noticed is that there's new stuff that happens all the time, and it'd be a good idea to give folks a quick little update of a few things. So the first is that WinLink Express version 1.6.6.0 was just released. So if you didn't see the new update, go ahead and quit WinLink, launch it again, and it should prompt you to update. I've got a note here from Phil that says new changes since version 1.6.5. So this is the new stuff. Improve validation of grid square on site property screen. They fixed a problem with Pactor favorite channels not being loaded. They also reduced the height of the form map setting screen so that it'll fit on the 720p screen. Thank you very much. That was a request that came directly from us. Turns out that we use 720p because Zoom and WebEx and all of these other applications, they're only actually pushing a 720p screen, and it makes it easier for you to be able to see the content that we have on the screen. So there's a little tip for you also. And they also fixed a problem recognizing a priority indicator like capital P / in the subject line of a message. We're going to have to get those guys on the horn and find out exactly what that means so we can check that out.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means. So if you have a priority message, it's P /?
Yeah, apparently. We'll have to do some checking into that to see what's going on with there.
Chris, we might mention if you're not on the group's IO site for WinLink, that is a really fast way to know when these updates are out there, even though the program lets you know. Phil puts out a personal note when he pushes out an update.
That's true. Let's see. The next update is, hey, standard templates got updated. The current version should be version 1.0.200. And again, you see that if I jump back over to my WinLink screen here real quick and you open up a new message. Actually, while you're in the main screen, this is where you can see in the upper left, you can see the version of WinLink that you're running. It's listed right up here. So if you don't see 1660, you should do an update and then click the little page, new message, select template. And right here, this is where you see the standard templates. And that's where you should see version 1.0.200. And it says in the release notes that check-in and check-out forms now support custom subject line in the text is the new update. And it looks like Bill has also put some notes here in the chat for us saying that it's in the help file. Of course it's in the help file. And he's gone in and he's put some notes in here that / WL2K capital R / is routine. This is the default. And then there's some other priorities. You can do / WL2KP, which would be a priority. There's an O, which is immediate priority, and a Z or Z, which is flash priority. There you are. So we'll point out to where those things are. So let's see what else do we have? Other updates. Oh, a Vara FM 4.2.3 update. And I'm going to have, let's maybe have David chat about this a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen.
Sure. Let me replace you in the spotlight. And there you go.
And we're going to share the screen. There's a new version of Vara, and it has some really important things. Here is Jose's website. Remember, it is ROS modem, weak signal software, and this is where you download all that good stuff. Vara FM is now 4.2.3, and I do see that Vara HF has come up 4.6.2, and that's where you download it. And here,
note in there that the first item in his highlighted things is WaveTalkers.
Yeah.
There's a video that that's the big update for Vara is they put one of our WaveTalkers videos up there on the Vara site.
Now, often, but not always, the program will notify you that there's an update. In this case, from the previous version to this version 4.2.3, it did not. So you sort of have to stay up on that. Remember, when you update it, you got to close the previous program as you're updating. And the biggest, easiest, best thing that has been updated is that the ping is now on the front page in a pull-down menu. Isn't that nice? So you don't have a 3-step thing to get to ping. It's right here on the front. And
which ping is really the most used feature that we use in Vara in the application, because you're constantly like, what do you use ping for?
What do I use it for? Well, simply to check continuity with a gateway. Often I will do that and see nothing, and I know I've done something wrong if that's the case, because the gateway that I am closest to is 6 miles away, and we're basically looking at each other. So for continuity and to make sure that the signal is okay. Now, I know, because this is in a fixed location, pretty much where everything should be set. But ping in the field when you're moving and you're not sure is a very valuable thing. That will tell you what you need to do to fine tune your signal with the gateway that you're sending it to.
Can you open up that ping window again, right? It's
Yep.
just one click right there on the
right there
on the toolbar now.
And then here's the closest gateway to me. And I am not set up to demo it, but if it was, I would start ping right here.
Another thing that I think they added is the drop down arrows, so that if you have stations that you frequently test, like I test the other gateways in the area and they do me, so we can let each other know if there's a problem. So now they are stored, and you just, rather than having to type it all in, you just hit the down arrow and navigate to the gateway you want to go to.
You know, I have plugged it in just that fast, and let's see if we can ping K6YZF-11. Well, obviously operator error 145.030. I've got to check something, but you all get the idea. And it's really nice to have ping on the front page of Vara. That is the update.
Very cool.
Let me share.
Do you want to just go into what you were doing for field day?
Yeah, absolutely. We had at LAX Northeast Aries, we had an abbreviated field day. Some people participated with other groups. We did not do our own. But we do have an activity day every fourth Saturday. So that gave us an opportunity to come out in the park, where it was absolutely beautiful. This was a very hot Southern California day. So we were out there most of the morning under shade trees, and it was just absolutely beautiful. It gave me an opportunity to bring out a new antenna in my toolbox. That's the Chameleon MCOM 3. Chameleon MCOM 3 is a pretty remarkable long wire antenna, and it's 73 feet in one direction, and we set it up in trees. Chris, if you want to roll the video, that would be great. Here's my little setup. That all goes in a wagon. It's an IC705 bioenno battery, and that one tree is holding onto one end of the long 73-foot wire, and we had it strung up maybe, 15 feet. It's got a 25-foot counterpoise, and go ahead and roll, Chris. And it was pretty amazing. In the morning by 10 a.m., every possible gateway that was within 400 miles had incredible traffic on it. But here we are connecting to K6SDR, and that is a hybrid gateway in San Rafael in the Bay Area of California, about 350 miles away. Beautiful signal to him. He is pretty accessible to us in Southern California all the time. This is an important thing. You can sort of see the antenna there, see the yellow caution tape, orange caution tape things. So it went from this tree all the way to that tree over there. That was pretty fun to do that. Had some help setting it up. Did learn about an arborist's weight. I had never seen one of those in action, but it's a little weight. I have one downstairs. I'll bring it up before we're done. And that's a fast way to get a piece of line into a tree. So that was our morning, and some other people were working on some mesh projects. We're preparing for a big race called AC 100, which I think only crazy people must enter, but it's a 100-mile race in the Angeles National Forest. And we're going to be at a certain location called Islip. And so we're preparing for that. And we're going to try to run a lot of mesh at that location. So that's what we spent our morning doing. Some of our group then went out to the Reagan Library, and that's closer to your neck of the woods, Chris. And at the Reagan Library, I think they had 20 transmitters. And so it was quite an operation to see that. So that was sort of my field day. It was abbreviated. Didn't really participate in the contesting. Did come home, took a look at FT8, and oh my gosh, it was just alive.
That's awesome. Hey, Dan, what about you? What did you do for field day?
Well, let's see here. Let me share my screen. All right. Do you have my slideshow showing?
Yeah. We do.
Okay. So I was with the Los Angeles City ACS, and we were at Fire Station 109, which is up on Mulholland Drive. Other than for our logging computers, we totally were battery powered. We recently got actually a couple of years ago now, a grant to do a project for proof of concept for notifying folks in a canyon here called Mandeville Canyon, which is a canyon that has very difficult communications. Police and fire basically can't communicate. Cell phone coverage other than T-Mobile is pretty non-existent. And so we thought we could improve coverage in there via a combination of Arden mesh and normal Part 15 Wi-Fi. And I mention that only because part of that grant that we got, we purchased a bunch of lithium iron phosphate batteries. And so this year we took those batteries and we ran totally off of those batteries, did not even use a generator this year. And we operated 4 Alpha LAX. We were on 80, 40, 20, and 15 meters, mostly CW, but some voice and FT8. The guys up top did 40, 2 meters, or 440 rather, 2 meters. I think they did a little 1.2 and 900 megahertz and some 220. Fire Station 109 is kind of a historic fire station for us. It's actually the site where it used to be a water and power site. And back in the 20s, they converted this into a mountain fire patrol station. And they ran the bulldozers that fight the brush fires. And Chris, if you're ready, could you run that video?
Yeah, you want to stop your screen share real quick?
Yeah. This is just a short video of this is the actual location where we did field day. Them rolling out. They do, in addition to firefighting, they do building and maintaining fire roads and obviously fire suppression. So the bulldozer unit, they after the World War II, they got a bunch of military surplus bulldozers, and still to this day they run bulldozers. They get my screen share going again. Up until last year, they actually kept the bulldozers in this metal barn here, but they've now moved them to a location that's more central. But anyway, we were at 109s. This is the site off of Mulholland Drive. There's a no longer used helipad up top, which makes it a very good site for us to use for antennas. This grassy area here was about chest deep weeds when we were there, so we couldn't use that. Down in the sort of halfway down this aisle here is a flat spot that we used for 20 and 80 meter station. And then down on where the former bulldozer garage was, we operated the 15 meter and 40 meter station. That's what this is here. And when David talks about where he was about 2 miles away from us. But the big difference is we had a lot of natural shade. They had none. They basically relied on easy ups, and it was very hot for us, but nothing like what they experienced. Here I am operating FT8. I'm relatively new with FT8, but sort of gotten hooked. Spent most of the day on 15 meters only because that was the antenna available to me. I did later in the afternoon, stole the antenna from this other station behind me there, or next to me there, and ran 40 meters for a little while till they decided they wanted to do CW on that. So there's Martin doing 40 meters, logging a contact. We used a simplex 2-meter channel for communications between the different stations. Here's Marty Wall, N6VI. He did CW on 20, 40, 80. I don't know that whether he ever worked 15 or not, but he's quite fast and a contact a minute at some points when things were going well. This, I have to admit, was a picture from 2019. We didn't get any of our antenna set up, but this is on the helipad up top. As you can see, we've got a good view of the San Fernando Valley from there. Great location. We chose this year not to set the beam up. We relied strictly on wire antennas. The beam was just kind of really cumbersome to put up and down, especially with the heat. You can see we did have mesh set up there. We were going to do it this year, but it just didn't work out. We didn't get, really just didn't have time to get it set up. And the guys operating the VHF and UHF stations. We had some visitors. This is Diana AI6DF, who is the section manager for LAX for ARRL. She came by. We had Command 42, Assistant Chief Rose, who's in charge of the San Fernando Valley for LA Fire. He came by and spent a bunch of time with us, was very interested in what we do. He works with the FEMA response teams for communications. And so he was very interested in what we're doing and spent quite a bit of time with us. And that's really all I have. I'll throw it back to Chris.
Great, thanks. Let's go over to Mr. Goldenberg, W0DHG, for a little wrap up from you.
So we too, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
So we too did field day, and as Dan mentioned, we did it in a really hot location. So got some slides to share. Make sure this is planned. So we set up. You got it?
Yeah, we can.
It's not full screen though, right? How about now? Is that better?
That's better.
There you go. Okay, cool. So we had an opportunity, and we've worked from this location from a number of years. This LA-96. It was an old Nike missile command station. There were no actual missiles there, up in the mountains above the San Fernando Valley, and we were 4 Alpha. We ran the LAMCOM Club Call. It's a 501c3 that we run in the Southern California area to help raise funds and put money back into amateur radio. The tower you see in the picture there was where these radar tracking dishes were previously. And we actually got to set up on the top of that tower. We had our UHF, VHF station, and really from up there, you can pretty much see 360 degrees of the Los Angeles area and beyond, which is a great spot. We've worked 220 on for 5 meters, and we had people come back to us from Orange County, like 60, 70 miles away. We're just so high up and have such a good location. We did also work 4 Alpha, and we were LAX session. Unlike the ACS guys, we mostly ran on generator. The station that I ran, radio
You can see sort of just left of center of screen above the railing, you can see some of the ACS
this stuff right here.
Yeah. That's our link, since we look right down from there into Mandeville Canyon, which is our target.
Lots of antenna options that we had set up. On the left there, that's Buddy Hex, and that performed awesome. In the middle, that's a 2-meter Yagi homebrew that one of our operators, W6MXL, had been building for field day, and it worked awesome. And then on the right there, that's one of my fiberglass military mast towers that we put up an 80-meter and a 40-meter dipole for the CW station to run off of. And then there was the satellite rig that Houston, he's wearing the baseball cap in the picture there with a big grin on his face. He set that up. We used that for the first time last year. It ties in with a rack-mounted PC unit you can kind of see on the table on the left there. And we tracked birds. In fact, part of the reason that Houston's grinning so big there was shortly after, I think it was 11:30, 11:40, the ISS went over. And almost immediately, the rotator there connected to the laptop put the antenna into action and started moving it around. And we made a contact within the first 45 or 50 minutes of the field day event with another station through the ISS, getting our 100-point bonus.
Fabulous.
Which was super exciting. And it was also exciting that I didn't have to, last year we lugged this whole big motor unit, I think it weighs about 80 pounds, up to the top of the tower and ran it from there. We just ran it kind of down below where the motorhomes were. And we had lots of members of the Aries group come and visit us in the top. Lori and John worked 40 meters, 20 meters, pretty much from the time he showed up. I don't think he slept at all. Lori visited for a while. She's a new member, recently licensed. And then on the top there were Art's working, again, UHF, VHF. On the bottom left, we had one of our served agencies. That's the Santa Monica Mountains MRC, the resource group that manages the park that we were in. He came and visited us and took a look at what we were doing. And then again, Buddy Hex on the bottom there from one of the other operating stations. I think there's more. I thought there was more. What happened to my slide? Let's see. Oh, maybe that was it.
So tell us about your Buddy Hex experience. This was your first time getting that thing set up, huh?
Well, it wasn't the first time setting it up. And in fact, I had it half set up shortly after I got it, but didn't operate it. And then the weekend before, I tried to set it up, and I know you recommended very strongly that I have 3 other people to hold the guys, that if the wind blew at all, it might turn itself upside down. And I had one person to help with the guys, and Chris was right, it was upside down. But it wasn't too bad and nothing broke. And based on that experience, I realized that, especially because the elevation we had and the fact that there was nothing anywhere near us that was electrical or otherwise, instead of going up the full 21 feet that I could have, I opted to go up about 15 feet on the really heavy parts of the mast that were all below the guys. And that thing was stable. Like once we had it up, I put my arm on it, shake it around, and it just was solid. It was super solid. I saw Josh from Ham Radio Crash Course posted a video. He did a review of Buddy Hex that he worked for Field Day, and they set it up at the beach somewhere, I think Huntington Beach, and it was blowing crazy there, and they had it up and it didn't move at all. So I have to rethink a little bit about how conservative I am with it, and just realize with the auger bits that I drove in the ground to guide it down, once it's guide down, it was really solid.
Yeah.
I think the big measure, oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say, yeah, once you guide that sucker down, the Buddy Hex, it works on the Mastworks system. And so there's 2 sets of guys that come off of it, an upper and a lower set. Mm-hmm. And when those are all like locked down in place, the whole system is really stable. Yep. David KK6DA and I had a Buddy Hex set up down in San Diego for the event that we went in and did down there in, I think it was April or so. And we had easy ups that were blowing down the beach.
Your easy up rolled over your truck.
It did.
Buddy Hex, firm as can be.
Buddy Hex stayed in place really well. And for those who are not familiar with the Buddy Hex, it is a portable hex beam. It is awesome for MCOM use. We can finally start talking about it a little bit because he's finally the folks at Buddy Pole are finally starting to ship them. They're resonant on 6, 10, 12, 15, 17, and 20 meters right out of the box. You just string the wires on and it works really well. I've been fortunate to be using one for about 2 years now. I was one of the early beta testers of it, and it is an absolutely remarkable antenna. What was your overall experience of using it? You had some feedback on that, David.
Yeah, so I worked with a bunch of new hams. I'm kind of the meter greeter at our Field Day site, and it wasn't super busy, but I knew we had a couple of new hams that joined us for Field Day, and I really wanted to give them the experience. So I pulled them in to help me set the thing up just from the get-go. And at first they thought, wow, it's like a lot of parts and it seems really complicated. But as we put it together, it made more and more sense to them, as it's been making more and more sense to me. And then once we got it all up, they were like, okay, it did look complicated, but it really, once you got into the rhythm, it wasn't so bad. And then when we sat down to operate, first I ran it through on my rig expert, and as Chris said, it was just, it was just across the board. It was like, okay, we can use this antenna. It's happy. It was great. And once we started operating, actually, once I figured out how to get all the logging software to talk to each other, which was not a buddy hex problem at all. It was more of a space, and was both vertical and horizontal space between all the computers that we had set up. Once we got it all working and the contest started, gosh, we were hunting and pouncing. I wasn't going to sit on a frequency. I'm losing patience for that as I age. We would find a station, we would sit down there, I would listen for one round. My methodology and what I taught the folks I was teaching was listen one round, get the call, get the exchange, so you know what it is, so you're not slow and burdensome. And I would jump in, and I don't know, for the first hour and a half, if I put out my call, they came back to me. And I didn't have to do it twice. It was pretty much every single time I heard it solid, I jumped in, even the pile up, they came back to me. We did our exchange, and then I moved on. It was just amazing. I never, I think when we first started doing field day, when we put up that 35-foot antenna, the mast on the trailer with the 6-element beam, we had similar experiences, but that thing took 2 hours and lots of people to put up. This was it just performed. It was really awesome. And we had no problems.
About how long did it take you guys to get it set up with the new hams?
With the three people, and I went and we used the augers to get the guys in 2 spots, and the other spot there was like a chain link fence. It just made sense to put it on. And I was kind of teaching as we went along. It was like 35 minutes. I probably would have done it faster just if it was myself. But I really, the thing for me about field day is it is not a contest. It says in the rules of this not a contest that it's not a contest. And it's really about, sharing what amateur radio is and the love of the hobby that I have with others. So it was really important for me to let them have the experience of touching, feeling, setting up. But it was still, like 35 minutes. We were like up in the air and ready to go.
That's amazing.
And it worked good. It worked really good. There were times as we were getting to dark where I was like, well, gosh, how could I extend the arms and make it go out another 25 feet so we could get like 80 meters? But I know it's not going to happen. Next year I'll put up another one of those fiberglass masts in that area with just a dipole for that for when it gets dark.
One of the things you could do, and this is what we did when we were out at Baker to Vegas, when we ran the solar powered gateway out at IBEX, and we had the buddy hex set up there. We were running that on the 10-meter mast. Mm-hmm. We about in between the 2 sets of guys on the mast, we attached a halyard. Yeah. And we pulled up the Chameleon MCOM3, the same antenna that KK60A was talking about them running over there. And we strung that up down the as well on the same mast. And we just had 2 sets of coax on it with a coax switch between them. So we could take the gateway and we could operate on 80/40. And that MCOM3 was also set up for NVIS, so we could cover the whole race course. But then we could also switch over to the buddy hex and work DX long distance, full across the country, no problem. I know a lot of the folks that are here on the call today that did check in with us while we were out at Baker to Vegas did so when they were on the buddy hex on 20 meters and 17 meters, because we were able to operate on those as well. So
I had measured out, there was room where I was to put up another one of those military masts, like 30 feet up. And I had I have a random wire tuner, and I have a whole bunch of wire for that, and I was going to put that up, but just it was so crazy, just never got there. There's a lot of public, there's a lot of folks visiting. We're right in the middle of this park that's kind of a destination for folks to hike to or bike to or whatever, and it was hot. It was hot. hot, and there was no shade.
Yeah.
You know, if you put up an easy up, you had shade, but otherwise there wasn't anything else that would do that. And
110 degrees.
you know, it was. I think the hottest that I saw was 102. But you know, that's not. It's not really a whole lot better.
Yeah. So for field day, and I think I mentioned this the last time. I generally don't get to do a whole lot of operating for field day. It's my wedding anniversary, and so I spent more time with my wife. But I also spent time preparing for next year's field day because I'm embarking on another project that we're getting started on. And that is a refit. I've mentioned, I think, a couple of times, and if you've been to my QRZ page, then you've seen the picture of my boat, which is the Calanectes. That's the crab. That's the name of the boat. That's there. And so we're doing a refit of it, and we're going to be replacing all the communications gear on the boat, new sideband, new VHF, and all of that. So next year we're planning on to do field day maritime mobile aboard Calanectes. So I was doing a lot of prep for that. I'm very excited to be able to do that. We can also do a POTA maritime mobile because we can go out to the Channel Islands and we will be inside of the park when we are anchored out. So I'm very excited to be able to do some of these things. But since I didn't get to operate with any of these different groups, I decided yesterday or day before, I went out and did my own little mini field day, which I do this pretty often. I went to one of the local parks here in Ventura and I set up, this is my like mini field day station. I operated with my 705, running just 10 watts. I had for power, I was using the 60 watt Power Film Solar flexible panels. And that was just going into the Buddy Pole Power Mini as the solar charge controller. And then for a battery, I just had the 3 amp hour Bioenno battery, just this little teeny tiny guy right here, plugged into it. And I realized when I got out there, just like what happens with field days, you get out and you got to make sure that all of your gear is in good working order when you go out into the field, no matter if it's field day or any other day. And I realized that my Surface tablet, the battery was pretty much dead, and my iPhone, the battery was pretty much dead in it by the time I got out there, but not a problem. I was able to plug both of those into the solar charge controller, and that 60 watt panel kept the battery at float so I could run 10 watts on the 705 the entire time. And by the time I was finished making all the contacts, my Surface and my phone were fully charged, which is kind of cool. For an antenna, what I've got set up there in the background on the left is the Buddy Stick Pro, which is a nice little portable antenna to be able to set up a perfectly flat SWR once I got it tuned up. So it worked really nicely. But one of the other challenges that I ran into, and I'm curious if the other folks that were operating field day ran into this, was so hot and sunny and bright, I couldn't see my screens at all. So I was really glad that I had brought a towel along with me, and I just kind of made this little makeshift shade area. I know, David, you've got the Panasonic Tough Book that works fine in full sun, and I'm still limping along with this little tiny lightweight Surface Go 3, which works extremely well, but it is definitely something that it's very difficult to see the screen when you are out in full sun. And I did have to keep constantly working on adjusting this makeshift towel in order to keep seeing and not burning up the keyboard. Like the keyboard actually shut down a couple of times on me because it got overheated in the sun after just being out there for just a few hours. So
really,
wow. We had one of our members has some equipment that they're demoing from a vendor, and it was related. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Related to internet access and so logging and some of those things would be easier. And that darn thing was so hot out, even with it being covered up by the sun, you could even touch it at a certain point. It was so hot. And they make all these things in, industrial black cases so that it just, we started to use that for internet access and to be connected. And so we could check calls and do other things and see videos of propagation and what was going on. And literally, 15 minutes later, just brought the whole network down to a crawl, and we abandoned all hope of having any connectivity. So,
right.
So the solution to the sun thing, and I think I've showed it before, you can get little tents for them in which you put your device sort of in the back. It doubles as a cat carrier too.
We basically took a table and draped a towel over it, so there was no sun hitting it, and it's still. And it may have been, who knows? It may have been a defective unit. Got
to think about those things,
Yeah, I didn't have an easy up until I went and I did a winter field day out here in Southern California, and we went down to the local park just down the street from me and set up, and one of the operators that showed up had brought an easy up, and it proved to be really essential in all of the sun. So I've since gone out and gotten one that has also turned into a flying circus tent, because I have learned that you do have to stake those things down pretty well too. They will catch the breeze and take off. So shade is a really big thing for field day. I'm kind of curious what other folks may have used or did for that, or anyone else who had issues with overheating in the sun. And going through looking at all of the pictures that everybody had and the stories that you guys shared, it did remind me of the three critical components that go into any amateur radio station. And that is the transceiver, which we're all pretty used to as one of the key components. The radio itself. There's the power system, and however you're going to power that radio, and the antenna system. And I find it really interesting that for field day in particular, we tend to bring a lot of other gear along with us, where we have to mix and match these different components. You have to pay attention to how much power are you going to need to keep that laptop running, the network in order to share your logging system, and all of those other components, and what antennas you're going to use and how you're going to design them and how you're going to lay them out. Do you have enough room to lay them out, and so forth? So I think there's going to be some other episodes that we're going to do coming up. We're going to dive into some of these other three components a little bit more to look at them, especially the power situation, because I think power is a really key thing. And there's multiple ways to go about power. There's of course, bring that generator that can just supply all the power that you may need. And there's also going the route of solar or wind or other alternative power sources. Generally, the option of running a long extension cord is not always the choice that we have. So I think those are going to be some things that we are going to do some upcoming episodes.
Chris, at LAX Northeast, we're contemplating some minimalist deployments to test one really important thing, especially in this part of the country. What if the fire chief comes over the hill and says, you guys got to get out of here in 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Can you bring it all in and put it back together, or at least the essential parts of it, pretty fast? We've had a couple of in the park activity days in which we've had to move because somebody else had rented the space we were using at the moment. And yeah, we could do it. We could do it in 10 to 15 minutes. We could move it 50 feet, or we could move it to our vehicles and get the heck out of there. And in fact, at AC 100, we're going to keep that in mind. We're not going to break it down, but we're going to keep in mind, if we had to break it down, and this is in the middle of the Angeles forest because of an approaching fire 3 miles, 4 miles away, could we do that?
And 3-4 miles is not very far. That reminds me of when the Thomas fire broke out here in Ventura. It covered a distance of about 25 miles in well under an hour. So it was moving really fast, and just consuming everything in its path. So that's a good point to keep in mind of when you're deploying your antennas. I like to think when I do events, and I do corporate events, you're always, as you're starting to put down your first little bits of gear, you're always thinking about the out. You're always thinking about how are you going to get out of the strike at the end of the show so you can get all your gear and get out. And I think it's a good lesson for amateur radio operators as well. And emergency communicators, always as you're putting out your gear, think about that out. How is that cable going to come up? We ran into that a couple of weeks ago when I was just at the Mountains to Beach marathon. There was a mix up at the start, and the start started going in an incorrect path, in an incorrect direction. They kind of came by our station in the wrong lane of traffic on the other side of the road.
You're too kind.
And let's see. I had set up my station so that everything was all like locked in, ready to go for the runners to be approaching from my left, going to my right. And suddenly the runners were ahead of schedule, going from my right to my left. And so I was directly downstream of all of the runners, grabbing their water bottles and water cups and throwing them right at all of my radio gear. So we had to do a very quick move of the comms table. And I was very happy to have had that experience of knowing that I may need to pick up and move pretty quickly in order to save all that gear.
One of the things we've talked about at ACS is trying to make our field day setup more modular, having, an 80-meter antenna, everything we need for that, the Dacron lines, all that kind of stuff in a separate bag or box, so we could grab it off the shelf, because obviously field day is a test for the real thing. And if we want to be able to deploy quickly, that doesn't necessarily address demobilizing quickly. But I think if you're organized, one of the things that we run into every year for field day is that the stuff we need to do a particular function is in multiple places, or did we forget to bring it? And we're trying to get to a point where everything is sort of in a modular packing, so that to put up an 80-meter antenna, everything we need is in one bag.
Yep.
And that would help in demobbing to the extent that where everything goes. There's not a lot of thought that needs to be made. Obviously, when you get a wind-driven brush fire like the Thomas fire, none of that stuff matters. You're gonna get your butt out of there. We had a fire, it's been about 10 years ago, and some of our CERT folks were helping evacuate this mobile home community, and the fire shifted, the wind picked up, and I mean, literally, there were firemen carrying disabled residents and chasing the fire truck down the street because the fire was there. And they actually had fire hoses that melted to the pavement because the fire was so intense. And literally they got out just barely. And obviously they planned for that. They planned an escape, and it still was close.
Chris, would you leave the Buddy Hex if you had to demob in 15 minutes?
That was something that we talked about at our site, and we put a lot of stuff up, and if I saw active fire, it all stays.
Yeah,
it all stays. Nothing's worth it.
Yep.
It moves way too fast.
Yep. Yep.
And at the
I might have grabbed this, because there's a lot of important stuff on here, and everything else.
Yeah. And being at the top of a ridge like you were,
it's one road up.
Yeah, we saw the video from Laguna Niguel, where the homes that were on the top of that ridge, there was nothing they could do to save them. They could have had 100 firefighters there, and
That also begs the question of how do you pack your gear for something like field day, for something like deployments? Do you go with I'm building out that Go box that has all of the stuff all ready to go in one 250-pound box that you need 6 gorillas in order to be able to move? Or do you build out a bunch of little go kits, or do you build out a more modular system where you've got a place where you can quickly pull the components that you need to be able to go? I've been going along with that last approach a lot more, where I'm working on getting some shelving set up in my garage, and I've got each different type of radio or each different type of component kind of set out there, so I can put together the components for the type of activity that I'm going to do. It's still very quick to be able to grab. They're smaller kits. I'm still kind of working out some of the details on that. But I'm curious, what are some of you guys doing for that? Are you what approach are you taking?
I certainly like the modular idea because, we could get deployed for a bunch of different things, and what we would need for a wildfire deployment would probably be very different than what we would need for an earthquake deployment. Wildfire, our equipment, particularly in our case, we have some fixed stations. That's probably going to be in good shape. But in an earthquake, we can't depend on that. So whereas we've got pretty good UHF stations around the city in fixed locations, after an earthquake, we can't depend on that. So we might have to take HF stuff, whereas for a wildfire deployment, probably wouldn't need HF. So having it modular, being able to pick and choose, I think is very valuable. Not to mention what you talked about with having a go box that was so heavy that, we showed in my video or my slides, I showed Marty Wall operating CW. He'd come back, I think it was from field day, and was so exhausted he didn't unload his car. And that night there was a major fire, and Olive View Hospital, which is a major hospital in the area, lost power, and the fire was approaching the hospital. And so they were having to evacuate patients, and they'd lost all comms. And so the call went out, and Marty, having all his equipment in the car, headed over that direction, but he couldn't get close to the hospital. So he got as close as he could, but then he had to grab what he thought he absolutely needed and could carry and leave the rest in the car, because he had to go 4 or 5 blocks or more carrying his gear. So that's another consideration.
And I think of MCOM and field day as different things.
Yeah.
And I think, for a disaster, I have 2 go boxes that are handy, ready to go, with another bag alongside it, which I could be up and running for, along with the stuff in my truck, for a couple days, right? They're not compromised radios, but they're not the radios I want to use for field day. Because for field day, I want to use a DX, like I use a FT DX 3000 Yaesu. For field day, I would not take that to an MCOM deployment. It would be useless and burdensome. But for field day, as much as I can get in the back of the FJ or on the roof or on the trailer hitch mount beside or in the pickup truck that somebody else brings to my house for all the crap in my garage we're going to haul out there, I would like to have the best opportunity or experience I have to make the most points in the not a contest.
So again,
it's all back to mission, right?
It is. So in my setup, I am working hard to be as minimalist as possible. And that's hard for David because, I've got the go boxes that, each weigh about 20 pounds, 2 radios, a 991A and FTM 400. The car has an FTM 400. That probably is the most mobile of my situations, but I'm ready to go in one little thing, which you've all seen before. Here's the go-to. And here's the ICOM 705. Now, granted, it's QRP, but it fits in a form size this small. A couple of batteries, I choose my antenna, I'm off to the races.
Yeah, I'm taking on a similar approach. I've been doing more like personal field deployment kind of setups where I literally just take a small day pack backpack and I can put my 705, I can put the Surface Go, I can put those 60-watt power film solar panels in there. I use this little teeny tiny battery with the 705 that, kind of gets me all that I need. It would be ideal if I have a second one. I've got a little bit larger one for if I had to do a deployment, I could bring like the 12 amp hour and I could run for kind of quite a while for that. But Bill's just asking, how long does the 705 battery last? Just the built-in battery. If you're just using the built-in battery that's here, oops, not that one. I guess this camera here. If you're using the built-in battery in the 705, the one that's back here, this just uses like an HT battery. That'll get you a couple of hours, but you're only going to be operating at 5 watts. With that built-in battery. When you plug in something like this, it kicks you up to 10 watts right away. So you get a little bit better power and instantly you're a little bit better situation than you are with HTs. And if you've got a solar panel on it, I was drawing about just under 3 amps, about 2.6 amps yesterday when I was running the 705, pushing 10 watts. I was fully charging the Surface Go and fully charging my phone, which was running as a hotspot for me. And so all of those devices together were taking just under 2.7 amps to draw. So I would not be able to get through the night on that battery unless I was just running the 705. And I was also running that in digital mode. I was mostly running FT8, which definitely draws a lot more power. So a lot of things kind of come into consideration as to how long you're going to run and operate. I have a 12 amp hour, I have a 30 amp hour battery, and those would allow me to do all of these things, for much longer periods of time.
Do you find yourself wanting 40 watts, 50 watts out of that 705?
Generally, no.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting answer. Good.
I'm generally no. I mean, there are times when I would certainly like to. I'm primarily using the 705 with 2 antennas. I'm primarily using it with either the Buddy Stick Pro or the Chameleon F Loop 3.0. The F Loop, if I'm doing a deployment where I'm having to hop around bands, the F Loop is faster to deploy, I think. And I can tune it a lot faster. If you saw the video we posted on the WaveTalkers YouTube channel a couple weeks ago, I show how to tune that F Loop, and it is really fast to tune. You don't need an SWR meter or anything. You just use the built-in tools inside of the 705.
Right.
For the Buddy Stick Pro, you're set up to do one band at a time, so it's not as easy to kind of jump around between bands. But it's you can get out a lot further with it. It's not going to do NVIS because it's a vertical antenna. Verticals don't do NVIS very well. So again, if I'm doing MCOM type things, I'll typically use that F Loop because it will do NVIS kind of right out of the box. In fact, when we did the deployment at the Mac for the Great Shakeout, it was the F Loop that I grabbed right away, and I did that 80-meter sideband check-in between Los Angeles and San Diego. And that was super fast to be able to do. The third antenna that I think is really kind of one of the gold standards for MCOM use right now is the tactical Delta Loop, also by Chameleon. That one, it does require a tuner, so I don't use it with the 705 all that often. I do have an external tuner for the 705, and I can use it, but you end up anything that you're using that's not a resonant antenna, you're burning up a lot of your power on tuning that antenna. You're not getting as much all the power out of it. So when I use the TDL, I'm usually using that with my 7300, and it works great. I mean, it's a fantastic. Past that, you're setting up bigger antennas. So I like to think about it as you're rolling into a deployment. You want to first get on the air. So you want to have that quick, fast antenna to get you on the air, try and get your mission accomplished, whatever it happens to be. And then as you get time for the deployment, as it kind of matures, then work on setting up your larger antennas. Usually, if I had it available, I would go with the Buddy Hex. If I'm doing anything 6 to 20 meters, that thing is absolutely amazing. It does not require a huge footprint of ground to be able to set up. And it's pretty quick to be able to set up, as David was saying. I've been setting it up now where I can pretty much set it up by myself in about 20-25 minutes, about the same amount of time to set the mast and the guys. That really takes more time than anything. I oftentimes, if I have help, it oftentimes takes me twice as long to set up the Buddy Hex, just because you're talking with people and you're kind of guiding them through the process, is what David was doing out with those new hams. Otherwise, long wire antennas are also great, but they usually take a little bit more to set up, especially here in Los Angeles, Ventura. We don't have big trees that are available to take and just, toss a line up in a tree. I think about when I was back east, that would totally be the choice for me, would be a wire antenna, because you can walk out, you just, toss a line in a tree really quick and pull a wire up. We don't have that opportunity here in Los Angeles as often, just because of the overall infrastructure that we have. So it really comes back to, what is that mission that you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do. What would you guys, any thoughts on what you want to do different for next year, other than working Maritime Mobile?
I'm going to run 330-foot lengths of Ethernet from each station to each station, so I just don't have to deal with the wireless networking challenges we had.
Nice.
I'm just gonna do it because I'm gonna do it.
Wired networking is always, it's actually easier, and it's really cheap because you can buy a box of cable and just crimp some ends on it, plug into a little dumb switch, and you're good to go. That's a good point.
I think you make it what you want to make it, and David Goldenberg is just a master at organizing these things, and Dan, you've seen yours too. I don't know. You can dip into it for a little while and then dip out. You don't have to be there for 48 hours if you don't want to, and that makes it fun. I would love to see next year some of the big operations like Reagan Library. I think that would be something to look at. Was that run by Ventura County, the Reagan Library?
It's Ventura County, ACS, ARES, and the PVARC club. I think it's a combo of the two. I haven't been out there for that, but I know it is quite the setup. They've got these big, gigantic, huge tents,
it's just
table set up, and just operators out the wazoo, and antenna farm. It's a really impressive thing to.
Yeah, they take it very, very seriously. Pasadena Radio Club also. I mean, you walk in the major room where they're really doing the work of field day, and you can hear a pin drop. I mean, do not say hello, do not engage. They are busy and really focused.
Yeah.
And we try to do a different field day than that. We really try to do like the open and inviting. We're at a public spot like they are, and much more our focus is engaging with the public that comes through on the bikes or hiking or whatever. And there isn't any like she's working someone kind of vibe. The couple operators that we had that needed the silence, like the one guy that was like working CW was like way off. You had to go way past all of the public tent that we had set up and the other operators, and like underneath one of the antennas and around the corner to get to where he was. It would have been an issue at all.
That's what headphones are for.
Yeah, and I think he was wearing them. But like one of the first years I was at field day and worked with the Aries group. There was some of that around one of the two stations we had. If anybody talking around, the operators would look at you and they'd kind of give you a grimace. And if you didn't get the picture, then they'd say, go stand somewhere further. And that's not what we're doing. We're really trying to engage with, not only the new members that we had come, but just the random public that pulled through. And some folks would run up and like, hey, field day, they would know on their bicycles what we were doing. And other folks would ask if we were doing some secret mission or was the world ending or
at the Nike site.
Yeah. Are you talking to aliens? All of those.
When was the Nike site decommissioned? Was it 1960s? Did it
early 70s, I think.
Early 70s?
Yeah.
And this site was the radar location and the headquarters, but the missiles were Woodley and Victory.
Yeah, Woodley and Victory, and it's still there. I mean,
you can see it on Google Maps.
Is still there.
And this was because of slow-moving Cold War airplanes. Is that what they were looking for? Or they were looking for ICBMs, or
I think anti-missile. I think.
Yeah, they're anti-missile, but you could do missile, and those could also address like planes, but they're not ship-based stuff.
Yeah.
This was all, this was all the madness of my, my youth, the whole mutually assured destruction. If something happens, crawl under your, elementary school desk and put your hands over your neck and hold on, everything will be fine.
Yeah. It's a whole different drop, cover, and hold on than what we talk about today.
And there were, you can look at the sites, there were nuclear tipped missiles.
Oh yeah.
They're in the valley ready to go if necessary.
There were 19 of them around the Los Angeles County area because of all the aerospace.
Yep. It was up and down both the east and west coast and south as well. They're surrounded the country. It was paranoia was strong.
I grew up in the Midwest, and there were several locations in Nebraska. That's why they put the Strategic Air Command there.
Yeah.
And the Dakotas, strange times.
So let's do a quick check and see kind of where things came in on the map. Let me pull myself away, and then I'll do the quick replace spotlight thing, and we'll jump over to the surface and do the fancy pants transmogrify trick. Let's do one more quick check, see if any other check-ins have come in. We'll do open session, do a check on the telnet here. And I've been checking all along, so there's quite a few that have come in here. We'll push the map button right up here on the toolbar. You've got your map. We'll bring that up. You select. Now you have to receive these into your inbox, which is why you send it to all four of us here. And we're going to click on select, and we're going to select this WinLink check-in form. And we'll go ahead and display the map. Now I've got this set to just display the past few hours, but let me bring this up to full screen, and we can see we've got this looks like Bill's joining us out there in Hawaii.
Aloha.
We've got folks all across the U.S. down here in Florida and Georgia and Texas, and up here in Colorado. Our friends up here in Idaho, up in the Pacific Northwest. We've got stations coming in from Canada, and looks like Maine, our friend from Bangor. We've got our friends in Germany and Austria. Great to see you guys joining us. Of course, Terry down here in New Zealand, our ZL friend who joins us every week. So thrilled, and we're glad everybody did come back. I know it's always a gamble when you take a week off because it gets a little bit out of the mode. We only had a few people who just joined on last week anyway, and joined on to the call, and they were like, "Hey, we're here for the WaveTalkers." It's like, next week we'll see you next week. So, and I got a couple of emails saying, "Hey, are you gonna do this again?" So yeah, we are, and we're gonna keep rolling with this. So I want to thank everybody who did check in. If you find what we're doing helpful or interesting, then please consider going on to wavetalkers.com. and use that buy us a coffee link to help us fund some of these things, because this takes quite a bit of infrastructure to keep all of this stuff up and running all the time, and that's how we're affording to be able to do this. So let me go ahead and bring the colleagues back up real quick. We'll do a quick round robin here to have any last thoughts. David, you want to kick us off while I'm bringing everybody else on?
Do what you want to do for field day and make it your own. We had a wonderful morning at the park at LAX Northeast. Some people went on to participate for the next day and the real contesting part of it. I know it's not a contest, but for some it is. And yeah, that's my advice. And it was nice and cool. It was, 85 degrees, didn't get to be 100. I don't know. That's tough to do when it's 100 degrees.
Nice. Dan, NR6V, any closing thoughts from you?
Not really. It was fun field day despite the heat, and we had a relatively good turnout, I think, and always would like to see more folks show up, but there are all kinds of limitations and competing events, and but we were pretty happy with that. We haven't figured out our score yet. Look forward to seeing that. And our guy that's doing that left the day after for a fishing trip, and so when he gets back, we'll be figuring that all out. But yeah, I think the thing I would do different next year is working FT8 being stuck on 15 meters was a little less than satisfying. So I'd either put up a multi-band wire antenna or have it set up such that, when the CW guys were taking a break, I could jump on FT8 and play. So that's it.
Excellent. Related to that, the playing with other antennas, if any of you guys find yourself out here in the Southern California area, give us a shout. We can, of course, try and set up a little microfield day to try and set up some times to be able to go out and play with some different antennas that we all have access to. It'd be a lot of fun. So, David, W0DHG, any closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think meetup. We should totally do a meetup and play in the park somewhere. In fact, I think I could probably. The location that we worked at's open to the public, and I just need to let them know, hey, we're going to go and set up. I think we could do it without even telling them, but it would be respectful of the park ranger that'll let them know. But I think we should go up there. I'm actually hoping to do winter field day up there. Different kind of weather and pattern. We'll definitely get socked in with the morning coastal stuff. But yeah, I think the thing about field day is it's a great opportunity to just bring out what you got and play with it. I encouraged all of the folks that came to visit us, new hams or old. I let them know we were going to have 3 or 4 complete operational stations. But I said, if you had something you wanted to bring it. We'll play with it, get it out, experiment. That's what the whole weekend's about. Again, not so much in the concept of the contest. It's really about an opportunity for folks to get in. I could have sat in front of my radio and told everybody else that was slow or didn't quite understand or whatever, and just say, we're just going to burn contacts, make everyone we can. It was really more important for me to stand behind them and say, okay, you do this, and here's the script, and you got it, and it wasn't perfect, and here's how to do it better next time, and just let them work the radio, because that's how you bring them in. That's how you get them engaged. That's how I got engaged when I first started. And I think field day was one of those big events for me that was wow, this is fun. And I don't have to be a hardcore contester, but for this one weekend a year or maybe 2.
I've discovered that I really enjoy working contests by going out and getting on the air, and because it gives a clean time to be able to focus on making some contacts, but I don't really get into the competition portion of it. But it's a good opportunity that, oh, hey, here's a contest that's going on out of Pennsylvania, and I'm here in Southern California. Let me see if I can work a bunch of those stations. It gives you a little bit of time to set up an antenna and kind of play with it. Whereas on the regular field day, it's the bands are just full all over the place, and so it's a different kind of working and a different kind of experience to be able to get in and play. And I'm so thrilled that everybody did have that experience of taking those new hams and bringing them in and working with them, helping them get on the air, and let them really get in and play. I mean, the picture for today's thumbnail was David working with a couple of hams setting up that buddy hex. So it's all aspects of this is what we're after. All right.
I'm with you, Bill. Bill writes, field day is like fishing in a stocked fish pond.
Yeah.
Did anyone do Canada Day? Did anyone do the Canada Day contest on the 1st?
No, there was a
I mean, it was, that's the Canadian 4th of July. And
Bob,
so
Victor Echo 3 Yankee X-Ray, our Canadian on the group, has given us a big thumbs up that he was
excellent.
on.
Excellent. I didn't know about it. I heard it. I dipped into it for a half an hour, and it was an enjoyable 30 minutes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, let's wrap this up for today. If you're in the Zoom, you're more than welcome to hang around. We'll do a little after party, and would love to hear more about what you guys did for your field day. Then I should know that you've heard us blather on for an hour and 20 minutes about the things that we did for our field day. So with that, we'll say thanks 7-3 everyone, and thanks for learning with us. I'm Chris, Whiskey 6 Alpha Hotel, and we are the WaveTalkers. So we'll see you again soon. See you next week. We'll end that. And now I found this other button. Let me see. Can I turn all of these off?
I was thinking I had not yet even begun to blather.
Boom. Look.